comes into real estate, right? Licensing school only teaches you how to stay out of jail. They don't really teach you about real estate, much less commercial. So there's a lot of heavy front loading to do once they join a brokerage in terms of training them up to actually speak in terms of commercial real estate. So lots of hand holding, lots of training. If they're new, if they aren't former entrepreneurs or salespeople, then coaching them up on how to set up their marketing best practices, what ROI is, what cost of not cost of attribution, cost of acquisition is, um, and really just getting the marketing set up. That's a lot of heavy lifting in the front end. That's usually my first priority is just making sure that they're starting their training and then they're getting the mark because the sooner you get the marketing going, the sooner the leads come in, right? And in our industry, the average time to the first deal is 12 to 18 months, which is uh, not sustainable for a lot of people unless you've got a sugar mama or some savings. Um, so, my goal, obviously, when I'm talking with them is get the marketing up and let's reduce that average time to first from 12 to 18 months to more like, 8 or 6 months. And just flood the system with leads. I got more leads than I can handle right now.
Is after 5 years of having a space for peers to figure out how we could work together. A lot of them have a lot of different talents, interests, connections, funding requests. We get a lot of funding requests. We get a lot of people that can provide funding as well. So we have an investment session, venture capital session this Thursday for people that can step into that. But certainly, one of the ones that I like is artificial intelligence, that we invite our peers to come together and collaborate together. CoVentures, collaborative ventures, to be able to figure out how we could do this. One of the big ones was last year with cybersecurity and still is with looking at $1 trillion industry that's going forward. We created a cybersecurity academy for training. We focused on being able to work with a particular verticals that are breached, like healthcare and cybersecurity. Also looking at different areas where our peers are able to provide some value, like Consulting Ace offers government grants, commercial incentives. The caveat there is that you have to qualify, but free money to qualify, you should try that. As well as Entrepreneurs University, where we could offer training for small and medium and large size companies, depending on what their needs are from a consulting, training, and coaching standpoint. And from that also, we find that many of our peers are also stepping into the AI, Savvy.ai, Echo.ai, VenOps.ai, where they're able to provide more value for the employees and the employers. And so we're working with VenOps along those lines, as well as other people that are focusing on that. And also the healthcare space with Blackbird Global Foundation. They offer healthcare kiosks. So we're working with Continuum Foundation for virtual solutions. Blockchain is obviously the platform for NFTs, for cryptocurrency, for ongoing, even certainly a platform for finance. The key here is that we have a way that we can communicate on a weekly basis. We have a mastermind session for CoVentures that you're certainly welcome to participate. Additionally, you can join our community, peersondemand.com, are also any of our events that we have, and of course our world
In
of
2023, after only being in the industry for 4 years, I was awarded National Mentor of the Year by my brokerage. And it is because I do things very differently. The tech background obviously predicates that. Um, in our industry, the average age of a commercial realtor is 60 plus years old. There's usually a lot of technology divide. There are two pieces of principal advice are cold call, and it's all about relationships, which is like no crap. It's all about relationships. It's about repeat customers. Name one company that doesn't need that. And then cold calling is one of many forms of lead gen. So I'm kind of the unmentor, I guess. I do things very differently. I do not cold call. I leverage technology to get my leads. I market. I have stuff working for me in the background while I sleep. And so I guess to bring it all back home, obviously artificial intelligence presents the ability to create efficiencies and more automation and all of that stuff that I'm doing.
So can you say more about AI? Because that's top of mind for everybody here. How are you differentiating yourself with AI? What is it that you do differently that has allowed you to be recognized in your industry, Chad?
So I'm having it write blog articles, which I'm sure everybody's doing. I also have it take commercial real estate research reports and basically scan the entire report and create bullet point lists. When those bullet point lists are formed, I have it downloaded into a spreadsheet. Um, and from there, I can go into Canva and basically there's a way to create bulk social media posts. So let's say I get a report and it generates, 20 factoids or whatever, right? I put that into a CSV file, give it to Canva, create a quick template inside Canva, import it, and I just created, 20 posts in less than 5 minutes. And so it's a really easy way to get fresh, unique, new content onto your social platform for very little time. And this is something that I have about 12 to 20 mentees at any given time, depending on the time of year. And this is like one of the things I teach them instead of having to constantly rely on cold calling. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not.
Well, it certainly differentiates you from others because we're always looking for ways to bring and get more connections and relationships, and your expertise is really.
That's interesting to me because of lead generation and stuff like that, and how you're utilizing the AI to pull and strip and the information down and then feed in and create more social media posting and stuff versus cold calling versus as that uh that's exactly why I was here, was to find new ideas and ways to apply and utilize is the AI platforms to pull information to help enhance our business operations.
I'll just add really quickly. The other thing we're doing is we use artificial intelligence for document review, well, offers, contracts, leases, stuff like that. In my new team agreement, I asked AI to review the team agreement from the group member's perspective who's signing, and then asked it to look at it from my perspective as the group leader who is, the head of the group. And that helped me really fine tune a lot of the agreement to make it more, balanced and approachable. Sorry for interrupting, but I forgot about that part.
You've got 20 mentees, Chad. What is the first thing that is most important that they should do?
Oh gosh, your timing is kind of funny. I don't have a first thing. I actually have just completely overhauled my onboarding process, and I just opened it back up. It's about 10 pages long of checklists. It's stuff that you do concurrently. When somebody comes into real estate, right, licensing school only teaches you how to stay out of jail. They don't really teach you about real estate, much less commercial. So there's a lot of heavy front loading to do once they join a brokerage in terms of training them up to actually speak in terms of commercial real estate. So lots of hand holding, lots of training. If they're new, if they aren't former entrepreneurs or salespeople, then coaching them up on how to set up their marketing best practices, what ROI is, what cost of not cost of attribution, cost of acquisition is, and really just getting the marketing set up. That's a lot of heavy lifting at the front end. That's usually my first priority is just making sure that they're starting their training and then they're getting the mark because the sooner you get the marketing going, the sooner the leads come in, right? And in our industry, the average time to the first deal is 12 to 18 months, which is uh, not sustainable for a lot of people unless you've got a sugar mama or some savings. Um, so, my goal, obviously, when I'm talking with them is get the marketing up and let's reduce that average time to first from 12 to 18 months to more like, 8 or 6 months. And just flood the system with leads. I got more leads than I can handle right now, which is why I'm forming a team. Because when I started my IT company, I started very much like the Michael Gerber way, where I started, if you're into the E-Myth, build it and they will come instead of actually focusing on biz dev and marketing. This time I'm doing it completely different, where I'm focusing all on marketing. I don't care about infrastructure yet. Those are efficiencies I don't necessarily need right now. Plus, I have AI to give me efficiency, right? And I just
Mhm.
want to market, and create more leads than I can possibly handle, so I can cherry pick what I want and then funnel down the the kind of B level leads to the group members, and then throw away the rest that isn't viable.
Wow. As you were speaking about that, Chad, the process that you have can be actually applied to any industry. It doesn't have to be just the real estate. I would imagine you would change,
Sure.
obviously, some of the parameters, but
The big thing for me, AI related, is as our system is, uh, we have a dietary management system, but we have a tool for menu engineering for dietitians to create menus for the different therapeutic diets that are required for skilled nursing hospitals and ALFs. And there are literally thousands of combinations per meal that are necessary to meet the therapeutic needs. And it's not just a matter of analyzing a meal from a nutritional cost. You have to also, I'm from a nutritional standpoint, you have to analyze it for cost and um, and skill level of the dietary staff. And so there's a lot of factors that go in. And the thing is, we've had literally thousands of dietitians working in our system over the now almost 20 years that we've been and around and stuff and building menus inside of our system. And so what I'm looking at doing is using AI to analyze outcomes as far as the diets that people were put on and with their therapeutic diets and the actual weight control and clinical outcomes that are related to the foods that they were given, and also looking at cost and linking this in also with food costs, because as you've seen, food costs went crazy during the pandemic, and that actually was a real positive for our business because our system was better at controlling food costs than our competitors in the industry. And now what I'm looking at is how to optimize with the food service vendors when they have specials as in food coming in, how to implement it into the menus that have been established for the facilities, is to take advantage of those food savings and stuff, because even and what seems minuscule on a small basis, as if you can save, have to show you on average, we've been able to reduce food cost in a facility by about 10% per month. Okay, so what you're talking about is $1,000, because most facilities is they're talking somewhere around $10,000-12,000 of their for their food budget each month, and by saving them close to $1,000, okay, that's a nice number. It's not doesn't get you excited, but when a group of homes owns 100 facilities, that's $100,000 a month. They start getting interested, and the and and the thing about it is there are more ways is to oh, save money, and so I'm looking at taking the data that we have inside of our system and looking at how I'm going to create the training model and stuff. And the thing that I actually envision is the work that they contract dietitians to do this analysis work, or to build the logic into the system to actually make it so that instead of the dietitian spending thousands of hours doing analysis, that the system will do the analysis and then the dietitian will simply do the review.
That makes
So
sense to
they're,
me, yeah, because instead of saving 10% on the food, I think competitions are going to catch up to you. But if you could save 10 to 20 to 30% on the dietitian's time, that could become 20 to 30,000 per location. All of a sudden, you're looking at some big money that could be millions, and that would be a
that's
differentiator.
exactly where you're seeing exactly the way that I saw it. Exactly.
That would be a gift chamber. So, what is the challenge that you're having at this point, Stephen, to get to that?
Financial resources.
Say more about that. What do you mean? If you got more money, what do you do with it?
Additional staff have to actually do work on the AI project and stuff where I need an AI partner, somebody who understands and how to build the model that I can work with and stuff because the programming staff that I've got is overwhelmed in just maintaining our existing product. I'm actually looking at possibly an AI partner to help with the data model and stuff like that to actually pull this data together and pull into the system.
Rocky, Stephen, it's become pretty easy to set up your own LLM now with open source and load it locally and keep your data in a proprietary fashion. I can't talk about it, but I do have one client working on that sort of area, but it's, literally a day's worth of work to set up the infrastructure for your own local private LLM. I don't know enough about it to say whether it can handle all the mathematical quantitative things of calories and weight of people and all of those sorts of things, but I would expect it could. So, I mean, it's not a high bar for you to take all of your data and put it into an AI. And in fact, the way the world is going, Jensen the CEO at NVIDIA, is basically pushing everything to the edge so that all of these LLMs are going to be burned onto very small processors that are local, pushing this stuff off these massive hosts that are general purpose and will be doing more complex AGI functions in the future. And anything that is, sort of industry specific or task specific, what we used to call in the 1980s expert systems, will just sit on a little chip. You can literally run one on a $100 Raspberry computer now. It's just that it's limited to about 20 tokens per second or something like that, or 10 tokens per second. So it will respond a little more slowly. But that's just a matter of throwing hardware at it. And Jensen claims they're going to, multiply the processing power of these AIs by, he says, 1 million, in the next couple few years. I don't know if I believe that number, but because it sounds like the quantum computing thing, which, still looks like a fantasy because they keep saying it's 10 years out. I started 8 years as a technologist. I ran all of the product development for Thomson Reuters back when it was called Thomson Financial Services in the 80s. Then I spent 14 years as a serial entrepreneur. I founded and sold 4 businesses for a total of about $1 billion, including the very first high definition virtual touring company for residential real estate that was funded by IBM. And now for 20 years, I've advised and consulted with companies that are venture capital worthy, usually have $1 billion TAM opportunity, and are disruptive in their industry. Most are technology oriented for that reason. But what we do is really industry agnostic. We just don't work with government or nonprofits or pharmaceuticals because those are, sort of very different and don't fit well with our model.
Well, who do you actually work with? Would it be manufacturing, distribution? What's the ideal client for
Any
you?
company in the $1 million to $30 million area, we work with any company because we can help any company get to its next level because we've got 3 different brands. The CEO boot camp for new founders, which I started in 2004. That's trained CEOs and entrepreneurs from 45 countries, thousands of them since then, and that's available online now. It started as a physical seminar event. We have Entrepreneurship University, which is a training platform for managers to create high performance cultures, with thousands of best practices and principles that I've collected over my 40 years as a CEO and baked into various training certifications for managers and executive C-level. And then we have Airtight Management, which is the world's most comprehensive leadership operating system, which is designed to save 5 to 8 years in building out the infrastructure that companies need to scale. Jim Collins, author of Good to Great, concluded it takes the average company 8 to 10 years to sort of figure out all their internal systems and be ready to scale. We cut that down to 1 year for our clients by dropping in 6 pre-built systems and then tuning them for that company's culture and market space. So
Well, you
that's our big
also,
idea, is helping more companies scale quicker and better. We try to get our clients to 50 to 100% compound annual growth rates.
well, you also presented a training on AI, so you're well versed on that, especially since we're focused on AI at this point in technology. Can you share how companies, what's best practice for a company to be able to use AI going forward that would perhaps leap them ahead of their competition?
Well, let me phrase that question differently, because it's kind of like talking about the internet in 1995 or how do you use water. AI is going to touch everything in every industry in different levels. I have a model because we do digital transformation at the strategic level, designing what needs to be done. And every company should now be using LLMs and AI to assist individuals. The second level of AI implementation is AI that will impact teams and whole workflows. And that requires more investment, more risk, more design, and probably running a pilot before you implement it company wide, depending on the size of your organization and the impact. And then the third level of AI is, really building custom apps. The second level might involve agents and using APIs, and many of the off-the-shelf software vendors are going to implement it for you automatically, like Salesforce.com does to, write emails or whatever, drawing upon the top 5 or 6 LLMs out there. But custom, like Steve is doing, that custom data is very important. The AI companies have run out of data to load into and use to train these LLMs, and so the rate of their progress is going to slow quite a bit. And I'm not a believer in, that we're going to have AGI, next year or the year after. But it's going to be a tsunami of impact on every business. And if you're not using AI, your competitor will be, and they will probably have a cost advantage on you, if not a quality and speed advantage as well. So, everyone's got to figure out what's their AI strategy and what do you do first. That's why I have that 3-level model: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, to kind of make it more manageable, because the question is a mind-blowing one. What do we do about AI? The answer is probably 20 or 30 different things, but of course you can't bite those all off at once. Everyone probably knows, Trump is announcing his, tariffs today at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And, it's been very disruptive to businesses that can't plan. And no one is going to plan based on a piece of paper that Trump signs and, might unsign next week. You can't move factories and jobs, and bring those back, you know, based on short term, because it's a 3 to 5 year minimum, payback on, investing in infrastructure like that, amortizing the factory build out and the design, the retooling, and, all the things you'll have to do for that. So, Trump is showing his massive stupidity and lack of understanding of business and markets by upsetting everything. And I don't have any good advice on that. I think everyone's just pulling back and waiting to see what really happens because he's guaranteed us a recession if these tariffs go by summer. We were already in a recession by many measures when you correct for the $6 trillion in COVID spending that just stopped filtering out into the economy, and you correct for inflation. I think technically we've been in a recession since Q2 of 2022. I'm sorry, Q4 of 2022, because we had 8%, over 8% inflation and 3% GDP growth. So no matter what calculator you use, that's minus 5% growth, right? And that doesn't extract the 6 trillion that was put out over 3 or 4 years in extra money that the government printed for managing the COVID problem. So I think everyone's got to act like a turtle and keep their head pulled in and figure out what's going to happen because Trump doesn't seem to get the very basic management 101 philosophy that the ability to plan is necessary for growth. And he's disrupting everyone's ability to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard it say from other peers that they're going to just buckle down and focus on their business. They can't control the external situations, but what they can control is being able to take this time out. Maybe it's a time out to be able to focus on their technology, their growth, their business, their lead generation, their AI. Would you agree with that?
Well,
Look at
that's the
Aries.
turtle strategy, right? Pull your head in and stick with your knitting and don't take a lot of risk and don't make a lot of investments. But those are the things that disrupt innovation and progress in an economy. So none of that is good for, the the economy in general and its growth. Of course, any good startup that is differentiated and disruptive can still raise money. Last I heard 30% of VC monies were going to AI related startups, although some of those might be in name only, and not really AI, but they're injecting some off the shelf AI into their product offering, as Chad is doing. Chad is, offering a capability to, force multiply your ability to generate, postings, right? And, probably anyone can figure that out in a couple of days if they're a little bit technical, because there's so many tools out there that are cheap to free. And, you're basically just chaining and chunking, a process together. Although, that's going to have some negative consequences on the internet, and Google and other search engines kind of have to look for that content, because what it's going to do is create a lot of fake experts out there that look like they're experts, but really the LLM generated all the content.